Tonight we are drifting into the quiet life of one of history's most luminous minds, a woman whose work reshaped science and whose personal story unfolds gently when told slowly, softly, without urgency. This is not a story meant to rush or to impress. It is meant to settle into you like a slow breath, like the soft glow of a distant light, as we explore the most relaxing facts about Marie Curie, allowing each detail to arrive calmly, one by one, until sleep begins to feel closer than thought. Before we continue, I want to pause for just a moment and ask something gently. Where are you watching from tonight? What country, what city, what quiet corner of the world are you resting in? As you listen, I truly love knowing where my viewers are and imagining these stories floating softly across the globe makes this moment feel shared, even in silence. Marie Curie was born as Maria Skłodowska in Warsaw in 1867, at a time when Poland did not exist as an independent nation, having been partitioned among empires. This historical backdrop shaped her early life, as education and Polish culture were often suppressed, yet learning was deeply valued within her family, creating a quiet but powerful foundation for her future curiosity. Her parents were both educators. Her father taught mathematics and physics. Her mother was a headmistress, and even though the family faced financial hardship and personal loss, including the early death of her mother, the home remained filled with books, ideas, and a respect for knowledge that stayed with Marie throughout her life. As a young girl, Marie showed an early love for learning, especially for science and mathematics. But opportunities for women in higher education were extremely limited in Russian controlled Poland. Universities did not admit women, so she joined the Flying University, a secret network that offered higher education in Polish, held quietly in private homes, moving locations to avoid detection. This hidden learning environment required patience, discipline, and courage, traits that would later define her scientific career. And even now, imagining young Marie studying by lamplight brings a sense of calm persistence rather than struggle. In her early 20s, Marie made a practical decision to work as a governess to support herself and help fund her sister's medical studies in Paris. This period lasted several years, during which she continued to study independently, reading scientific texts late at night after long days of work. Letters from this time reveal her deep longing for scientific study, but also her ability to wait, to endure quietly, to trust that time would eventually open a door, a mindset that feels soothing in a world that often demands speed. In 1891, Marie finally moved to Paris to study at the Sorbonne, one of the few universities open to women at the time. She lived in a small, unheated attic room, surviving on little more than bread, tea, and determination. Yet she thrived academically, earning degrees in physics and mathematics, often studying until exhaustion, then resting briefly before returning to her work, her days forming a gentle rhythm of effort and recovery. It was in Paris that she met Pierre Curie, a physicist already respected for his work on crystallography and magnetism. Their relationship developed slowly, grounded in mutual respect and shared intellectual curiosity rather than dramatic romance. They spoke often of science, of simplicity, of a life devoted to discovery rather than material comfort. And this shared vision became the quiet center of their marriage. Together, Marie and Pierre began studying mysterious rays emitted by uranium, following the earlier work of Henri Becquerel. Marie coined the term radioactivity to describe this phenomenon, giving language to something invisible yet powerful. And in doing so, she gently expanded the boundaries of known science. Their laboratory was modest, often described as drafty and poorly equipped, but it became the birthplace of discoveries that would alter modern physics and chemistry. Marie discovered that the radiation emitted by uranium ores was stronger than could be explained by uranium alone, leading her to hypothesize the existence of unknown elements. This careful observation required patience and repetition, measuring tiny electrical currents again and again, trusting consistency over assumption, a process that mirrors the slow steadiness of relaxation itself. In 1898, Marie and Pierre announced the discovery of two new elements: polonium, named after Marie's homeland, and radium, named for its intense radiation. Isolating these elements required years of labor, processing tons of pitch blende by hand, stirring boiling cauldrons of residue, often late into the night. Yet Marie later described this work not as suffering, but as deeply absorbing, almost meditative in its focus. In 1903, Marie Curie became the first woman to receive a Nobel Prize, sharing the Nobel Prize in physics with Pierre Curie and Henri Becquerel. She was also the first person ever to win a Nobel Prize in two different scientific fields, though the second would come later. This first recognition was quiet, rather than celebratory for her. She remained more interested in continuing her research than in public attention. Tragedy entered Marie's life in 1906 when Pierre Curie died suddenly in a street accident. The loss was devastating, yet Marie responded not with withdrawal from science, but with a deeper commitment to it. She took over Pierre's teaching position at the Sorbonne, becoming the first woman to teach there. Her inaugural lecture began exactly where Pierre's last lecture had ended, a subtle and powerful act of continuity rather than rupture. Marie continued her research with calm determination, and in 1911 she received her second Nobel Prize, this time in chemistry, for her discovery of two new elements and for isolating radium in its pure form. This achievement remains unique, as she is still the only person to win Nobel Prizes in two different scientific sciences. Despite her fame, Marie lived simply. She did not patent her methods for isolating radium, believing that scientific knowledge should belong to everyone. This choice meant she did not become wealthy from her discoveries, but it reflected her values: knowledge over profit, contribution over ownership, a perspective that feels grounding and gentle even today. During World War I, Marie applied her scientific expertise to medicine, developing mobile radiography units that could be driven to the front lines. These units helped doctors locate bullets and shrapnel inside wounded soldiers. She personally trained operators and often drove the vehicles herself, bringing quiet, practical care into a time of chaos without seeking recognition. Marie Curie's later years were shaped by continued research, teaching, and international collaboration, though the long-term effects of radiation exposure gradually weakened her health. She remained intellectually active, engaged with students, colleagues, and scientific institutions, building not only discoveries, but communities of learning. She died in 1934 from aplastic anemia, a condition now understood to be linked to prolonged radiation exposure, and she was later honored by being interred in the Pantheon in Paris, becoming the first woman to be buried there on her own merits, a recognition that arrived softly years after the most intense chapters of her life had passed. Even after her death, Marie Curie's legacy continues quietly. Her notebooks remain radioactive and are stored in lead-lined boxes, a physical reminder that knowledge carries weight and consequence, yet also illumination. Her family continued her scientific lineage, with her daughter Irène Joliot-Curie also winning a Nobel Prize in chemistry, making the Curie family one of the most scientifically influential in history. Marie Curie's life offers a rare kind of comfort, not through ease, but through steadiness, through devotion to truth, patience, and the belief that careful attention can reveal hidden beauty. Her story unfolds not as a dramatic arc, but as a long, slow dedication to understanding the world a little more clearly. And in listening to these facts, one by one, we can let that same steadiness settle into us, slowing the breath, softening the mind, preparing the body for rest. As Marie Curie's work became known around the world, invitations began to arrive from universities, scientific societies, and institutions across Europe and beyond. Yet she remained cautious about public life, preferring laboratories and classrooms to stages and ceremonies. When she did travel, it was often with a clear purpose: to collaborate, to teach, or to secure support for research institutions that lacked funding, especially those focused on peaceful scientific advancement rather than commercial or military gain. One of Marie's enduring contributions was her role in establishing research institutes dedicated to the study of radioactivity. In Paris, the Radium Institute, later named the Curie Institute, became a center for research in physics, chemistry, and medicine. The atmosphere there reflected Marie's own values: quiet concentration, shared effort, and a sense that discovery was a collective process rather than an individual triumph. Students and researchers described her presence as calm and reserved, never imposing, yet deeply influential through example rather than authority. Marie Curie was known for her modesty, even when surrounded by admiration. She dressed simply, spoke plainly, and avoided unnecessary luxury. Colleagues often noted that she seemed uninterested in personal fame, focusing instead on whether the work itself was meaningful and accurate. This detachment from recognition allowed her to remain grounded, even as her name became synonymous with scientific progress. Her teaching style reflected the same simplicity. Marie valued clarity over showmanship, encouraging students to understand principles deeply rather than memorize conclusions. She believed that scientific education should cultivate patience, precision, and honesty, qualities that take time to develop and cannot be rushed. Many of her students later recalled her quiet encouragement, her willingness to listen, and her habit of letting silence linger while a problem unfolded naturally. Marie Curie's notebooks, laboratory tools, and personal letters reveal a mind that was constantly engaged, yet rarely frantic. Her writing shows careful phrasing, thoughtful pauses, and an attention to detail that mirrors the slow pace of experimental work. Even her correspondence often blended scientific discussion with reflections on nature, weather, and daily life, grounding abstract ideas in gentle observation. Although radiation was still poorly understood during much of her career, Marie approached it with respect rather than fear. She handled radioactive materials daily often carrying test tubes of radium in her pockets, drawn to their faint blue glow. At the time, this glow was seen as a curiosity rather than a danger, and Marie's fascination was rooted in wonder rather than carelessness, a reminder of how knowledge itself evolves slowly through experience and time. As awareness of radiation risks grew, Marie supported efforts to apply radioactive research responsibly, particularly in medicine. She believed strongly in using scientific discoveries to reduce suffering, not to cause harm. Her involvement in medical radiography during World War I was guided by this belief, bringing science closer to human care, closer to healing, even in the midst of destruction. Despite physical fatigue and declining health in her later years, Marie continued to work at a steady pace, adapting her routines rather than abandoning them. She often rested between periods of research, understanding intuitively that sustained effort required balance. This rhythm, work, rest, reflection, mirrors the gentle cycle we follow when we prepare for sleep, allowing activity to soften gradually into stillness. Marie Curie also valued international cooperation in science. She participated in scientific conferences and supported organizations aimed at fostering collaboration across borders. She believed that science belonged to humanity as a whole, transcending national divisions. This belief became especially meaningful after witnessing the devastation of war, reinforcing her commitment to peaceful applications of knowledge. Her relationship with her daughters reflected the same quiet encouragement she offered her students. Marie supported their education, curiosity, and independence, never forcing a particular path, but providing an environment where learning was respected and exploration welcomed. This nurturing atmosphere allowed Irene to pursue science naturally, eventually leading to her own significant contributions. Marie's life demonstrates that impact does not require loudness. Many of her most influential moments occurred in silence, in laboratories late at night, in careful measurements repeated until certainty emerged, in decisions made according to conscience rather than convenience. This quiet strength becomes especially soothing when remembered slowly, without urgency. Even today, Marie Curie's influence persists in hospitals, research centers, and educational institutions around the world. Technologies that rely on radiation, from cancer treatments to diagnostic imaging, trace their roots back to her careful early work. Yet behind these advancements lies a story not of speed or spectacle, but of sustained attention, curiosity, and respect for the unknown. Her legacy invites us to consider a different pace of life, one where progress unfolds gradually, where dedication replaces haste, and where understanding deepens through patience. As these thoughts settle, it becomes easier to release tension, to let the mind wander gently, knowing that meaningful change often comes quietly. Listening to Marie Curie's story in this way allows her life to feel less like a historical monument and more like a steady presence, a reminder that calm persistence can illuminate even the most mysterious parts of the world. Her journey, when told softly, becomes not just a biography, but a companion for rest, guiding the mind toward stillness without demanding attention. As the years passed, Marie Curie's presence in the scientific world became quietly symbolic, not because she sought that role, but because her life embodied a rare consistency between belief and action. She believed in science as a tool for understanding nature not controlling it, and this belief guided her decisions even when alternative paths might have brought comfort or ease. She declined opportunities that conflicted with her principles, choosing instead to remain close to research, education, and the slow unfolding of discovery. Marie's daily routines were simple and predictable, which many found reassuring. She often walked to her laboratory, valuing the quiet moments of transition between home and work. These walks gave her time to think, to observe the city, to notice light, weather, and movement, grounding abstract thought in physical reality. This habit of gentle observation extended into her scientific practice, where she trusted careful measurement more than bold speculation. Although her work required intense concentration, Marie valued rest and solitude. She enjoyed spending time in nature when possible, finding calm in gardens and open spaces. These moments, away from instruments and calculations, allowed her mind to settle, making room for clarity rather than exhaustion. She understood, even without naming it, that creativity and insight often arrive when pressure eases. Marie Curie's approach to leadership was understated. At the Radium Institute, she fostered an environment of cooperation rather than competition. Younger researchers were encouraged to ask questions freely, to make mistakes, and to learn through patient repetition. She believed that fear hindered understanding, while calm curiosity invited it. This philosophy shaped generations of scientists who carried her influence forward in subtle ways. Her scientific papers were written with precision and restraint. Marie avoided unnecessary language, focusing instead on clear descriptions of methods and results. This clarity made her work accessible to others, allowing discoveries to be built upon rather than guarded. In this way, her writing became another quiet contribution to the collective nature of science. Despite the physical toll of her work, Marie rarely complained about discomfort or fatigue. Letters from colleagues suggest that she accepted physical limitations without resentment, adjusting her pace while maintaining purpose. This acceptance was not passive, but practical, a recognition that life unfolds within boundaries and that meaningful work can continue even as conditions change. Internationally, Marie Curie became a symbol of intellectual integrity. She was invited to participate in scientific councils and advisory groups, where her voice carried weight not because it was loud, but because it was measured. She listened carefully, spoke thoughtfully, and avoided unnecessary conflict. Her presence often brought balance to discussions, slowing them down enough for deeper understanding to emerge. In the years following World War I, Marie traveled to the United States to raise funds for research, including securing radium for laboratories that could not afford it. These journeys were physically demanding, yet she undertook them with a sense of responsibility rather than enthusiasm for attention. She viewed these efforts as extensions of her scientific duty, ensuring that research could continue beyond individual limitations. Marie's connection to Poland remained strong throughout her life. Although she spent much of her career in France, she supported scientific education in her homeland and contributed to the establishment of research institutions there. Naming polonium after Poland was not only a scientific choice, but a quiet acknowledgement of identity and memory, linking discovery to personal history. Her personal letters reveal moments of reflection, tenderness, and quiet resilience. She wrote thoughtfully about grief, particularly after Pierre's death, expressing sorrow without dramatization. These writings show a woman who allowed herself to feel deeply, yet chose to continue living purposefully, letting work become a form of steady companionship rather than distraction. Marie Curie's influence on women in science unfolded gradually. She did not position herself as a public advocate, yet her existence within academic spaces challenged assumptions simply by being consistent, capable, and present. Her career demonstrated that excellence does not require justification, only opportunity and persistence. Even in recognition ceremonies, Marie remained reserved. Photographs often show her standing calmly, hands folded, expression thoughtful rather than triumphant. These images reflect her inner orientation, focused inward, attentive to ideas rather than applause. This quiet demeanor continues to resonate with those who find comfort in humility rather than display. The materials Marie worked with, now known to be hazardous, were once symbols of promise and curiosity. Her lack of protection was a result of limited knowledge rather than disregard. This context reminds us that science advances not only through answers, but through gradual understanding of consequences, an unfolding process rather than a finished map. As Marie's health declined, she spent time at sanatoriums, resting when possible, yet remaining mentally engaged. She continued reading scientific literature, staying connected to developments in her field. Even in rest, her mind remained gently curious, open to learning without urgency. Her death marked the end of a life, defined by quiet dedication, yet her influence did not diminish. Institutions she helped build continued their work. Students she taught carried forward her methods, and discoveries rooted in her research expanded into new fields. This continuity reflects a life lived in service to something enduring rather than immediate reward. Marie Curie's story, when told slowly, becomes less about milestones and more about rhythm, a rhythm of study, patience, observation, rest, and return. This rhythm mirrors the natural cycles of the body and mind, making her life particularly soothing to reflect upon when seeking calm. As you listen to these facts, gently expanding and settling, there is no need to remember every detail. Like her work, the meaning lies not in memorization, but in atmosphere, the atmosphere of steady effort, quiet courage, and respect for the unseen forces shaping the world. Allow this sense of steadiness to continue flowing, each thought easing into the next, without sharp edges or urgency, just a slow movement toward rest, guided by the life of a woman who proved that even the most powerful discoveries can be made softly. As Marie Curie's name became increasingly associated with scientific integrity, her presence began to represent something quieter than achievement, a model of how a life devoted to understanding can unfold without haste. She never rushed conclusions, never hurried experiments, and this deliberate pace shaped the way she experienced time itself. Days were structured around observation and repetition, creating a steady rhythm that reduced chaos rather than amplifying it. Marie believed deeply in accuracy. She often repeated measurements countless times, not because she doubted herself, but because she respected uncertainty. This respect created a gentle relationship with the unknown, where unanswered questions were not threats, but invitations to remain curious. This mindset allowed her to work for years on problems that yielded results only gradually, teaching patience not as endurance, but as attentiveness. Her laboratory environment reflected her character. It was practical, sparse, and focused. There were no unnecessary decorations, only tools, notes, and materials arranged to support concentration. The simplicity of the space encouraged mental clarity, allowing distractions to fade. Many who worked alongside her recalled the quiet atmosphere, broken only by the sounds of instruments or the turning of pages. Marie Curie's connection to time was also shaped by loss. After Pierre's death, she experienced grief not as a single moment, but as a lingering presence. Instead of seeking escape, she allowed grief to coexist with work, letting each inform the other. This integration created a sense of continuity rather than rupture, a way of moving forward without erasing what came before. Her lectures were delivered with calm precision. She did not dramatize concepts or seek emotional responses. Instead, she trusted that understanding itself carried its own quiet satisfaction. Students often described her voice as steady and measured, guiding attention rather than demanding it. This approach made learning feel less like performance and more like shared exploration. Marie Curie's relationship with uncertainty extended beyond science. She accepted unpredictability in life with similar composure. Financial instability, social barriers, and health challenges were met with adjustment rather than resistance. This flexibility allowed her to remain focused on what could be done in the present moment rather than what could not be controlled. Throughout her life, Marie maintained a strong connection to reading. Books accompanied her during periods of rest, travel, and recovery. Reading provided both knowledge and comfort, offering a quiet companionship that mirrored her own inner world. Scientific texts, biographies, and philosophical writings all found space in her daily routine, feeding curiosity without overwhelming it. Her scientific collaborations were marked by mutual respect. Marie valued dialogue over hierarchy, listening carefully to others' ideas regardless of status. This openness created an environment where insight could emerge from any direction. She believed that discovery was rarely solitary, even when the work itself required solitude. Marie Curie's understanding of radioactivity evolved over time. Early fascination gradually gave way to deeper comprehension of its effects. This evolution reflects the broader nature of scientific progress, where initial wonder matures into responsibility. Marie adapted her practices as knowledge grew, demonstrating that learning is an ongoing process rather than a completed state. In moments away from formal work, Marie appreciated simple pleasures, a quiet meal, a walk, a conversation held without urgency. These moments were not escapes from purpose, but extensions of it, reinforcing balance rather than distraction. She understood that a mind at rest often returns to work with greater clarity. As international recognition increased, Marie remained selective about commitments. She conserved energy carefully, aware that attention carried its own cost. By choosing where to invest her time, she preserved the ability to work deeply rather than broadly, favoring depth over visibility. Her later correspondence reflects a tone of gentle acceptance. There is little bitterness, little regret. Instead, there is an awareness of limitation paired with gratitude for the opportunity to contribute. This emotional equilibrium suggests a life aligned with values rather than expectations. Marie Curie's influence on modern science continues not only through discoveries, but through methodology. Her insistence on careful measurement, transparency, and ethical responsibility became foundational principles in scientific research. These principles now operate quietly in laboratories around the world, often unnoticed, yet essential. Even the physical remnants of her work carry a sense of stillness. Her notebooks, preserved carefully due to their radioactivity, remain untouched artifacts of concentration and patience. They sit quietly, holding handwritten equations and observations, reminders that knowledge once emerged slowly, line by line, in human hands. Marie Curie's burial in the Pantheon symbolizes recognition, yet the true essence of her legacy lies elsewhere. It lives in the quiet moments of study, in the careful repetition of experiments, in the belief that understanding grows best when given time. This legacy feels especially soothing when remembered at night, when the mind seeks steadiness rather than stimulation. As these thoughts continue flowing, there is no destination to reach. Like Marie's work, the value lies in the process itself. Listening becomes a form of rest, attention softens, and the story blends gently into the background of awareness. Her life reminds us that greatness does not require constant motion. Sometimes it unfolds slowly, patiently, through days that look similar from the outside, yet carry deep significance within. This realization can ease the pressure to strive, replacing it with permission to simply be. Let these reflections drift quietly, without effort. There is nothing to solve, nothing to remember perfectly, just a steady presence, a calm narrative, and the gentle rhythm of a life lived with intention, guiding the mind closer to stillness, closer to sleep. As Marie Curie's story stretches across time, it begins to feel less like a sequence of events and more like a landscape, wide, quiet, and steady. Each moment connects naturally to the next, not through urgency, but through continuity. Her life shows how persistence can feel calm rather than forceful, how dedication can exist without tension. Marie's relationship with work was never frantic. She approached science as something to live with, not conquer. Experiments unfolded over months and years, allowing her to develop a deep familiarity with materials, instruments, and processes. This familiarity reduced anxiety, replacing uncertainty with patient observation. Over time, the laboratory became an extension of her inner rhythm, predictable, focused, and grounding. She rarely separated thinking from doing. Physical work, lifting, stirring, measuring, was intertwined with reflection. This balance between body and mind gave her days a natural structure, preventing mental exhaustion from becoming overwhelming. Even difficult tasks were approached methodically, one step at a time, reinforcing a sense of quiet control. Marie Curie's emotional restraint was often misunderstood as distance, but those close to her described warmth, expressed through consistency rather than display. She showed care by being present, by following through, by offering stability. This form of connection, steady and reliable, created trust without intensity, another reflection of her calming influence. Her scientific discipline extended into how she handled uncertainty in public perception. Rumors, misunderstandings, and scrutiny arose at various points in her life, yet she rarely responded defensively. Instead, she returned to work, letting evidence speak over time. This choice protected her inner calm, preventing external noise from disrupting her focus. Marie's understanding of responsibility deepened as her discoveries gained influence. She remained aware that scientific knowledge carries consequences, and she treated this awareness seriously. Rather than withdrawing, she leaned into ethical consideration, supporting applications that alleviated suffering while remaining cautious about misuse. This thoughtful balance reflects a mature relationship with power, one rooted in care rather than control. Her influence within academic institutions was subtle but enduring. Policies emphasizing rigor, transparency, and collaboration often traced back to standards she set simply by example. She did not impose rules loudly, yet her expectations became norms, shaping cultures long after her direct involvement ended. Marie Curie's calm endurance became especially visible during periods of physical decline. As strength waned, she adjusted without dramatization. Rest became part of her routine, not a failure, but a necessary condition for continuation. This acceptance modeled a healthier relationship with limitation, one that values sustainability over constant output. Her interactions with students during these later years remained attentive. She listened carefully, asked thoughtful questions, and encouraged independent thinking. Even when unable to work at full capacity, she remained engaged through conversation and mentorship, showing that contribution can take many forms. Marie's scientific legacy also exists in language. The term radioactivity, which she introduced, remains in use today, embedded quietly in textbooks, research papers, and medical contexts. Words shape understanding, and by naming this phenomenon, she gave future generations a tool for exploration. This act of naming was gentle, precise, and enduring. The simplicity of Marie Curie's personal life offers a quiet contrast to the magnitude of her impact. She valued privacy, routine, and meaningful work over social excess. This simplicity reduced distraction, allowing her energy to flow toward what mattered most. In this way, her life suggests that peace and productivity need not be opposites. As time moves further from her lifetime, Marie's story becomes less about novelty and more about example. The example of moving slowly, thinking carefully, acting responsibly, and remaining grounded in values. These qualities resonate deeply in moments of rest, when the mind seeks reassurance rather than stimulation. Listening to her life unfold in this gentle way can feel like following a steady heartbeat. There are no sudden turns, no sharp edges, only a gradual progression shaped by attention and care. This steadiness invites the body to mirror it, breath slowing, muscles relaxing, thoughts loosening their grip. Marie Curie's life does not ask to be admired loudly, it asks to be understood quietly. In understanding, there is comfort, and in comfort, there is rest. Her journey reminds us that meaningful lives often grow from consistency rather than intensity, from patience rather than urgency. As these reflections continue, they need not form conclusions. Like her work, they can remain open, unfinished, gently unfolding. There is no need to reach an ending, only to allow the narrative to soften into the background, becoming a quiet companion as awareness drifts. Let the rhythm continue, steady and calm, each sentence easing into the next, each thought releasing into silence. There is nothing to do, nothing to prepare for, just a slow settling, guided by the life of someone who showed that even the most profound discoveries can emerge from stillness. As Marie Curie's life continues to unfold in this quiet reflection, it becomes clear that her strength was rooted in steadiness rather than intensity. She did not chase moments of brilliance. She created conditions where understanding could arrive on its own time. This approach required trust, trust in process, trust in patience, trust that careful attention would eventually reveal what hurried effort could not. Her long hours in the laboratory were not driven by urgency, but by curiosity sustained over time. She often returned to the same problems day after day, not because they resisted her, but because they invited deeper familiarity. This repetition created intimacy with her work, a sense that she was listening rather than forcing answers to appear. Marie's calm demeanor was shaped by this long engagement with uncertainty. When outcomes were unclear, she did not become restless. Instead, she refined methods, adjusted variables, and waited. This willingness to wait is one of the most soothing aspects of her story, a reminder that not everything needs immediate resolution. Her sense of purpose did not fluctuate with external circumstances. Praise and criticism passed through her life without dramatically altering her direction. This emotional consistency gave her resilience, allowing her to remain centered even when events around her shifted unexpectedly. It is a quiet kind of resilience built not on resistance, but on alignment with values. Marie Curie's respect for nature extended beyond scientific interest. She approached natural phenomena with humility, aware that human understanding is always partial. This humility softened her relationship with knowledge, preventing arrogance and encouraging openness. In this openness, there is calm, the calm of knowing that it is acceptable not to know everything at once. She also understood the importance of continuity. Her work was not isolated from the past or future, but part of a longer chain of inquiry. She acknowledged the scientists who came before her and supported those who would come after. This sense of belonging to something larger reduced the pressure of individual achievement, replacing it with shared purpose. Marie's personal correspondence often reflects this long view. She wrote about work not as a burden, but as a meaningful thread running through life. Even during periods of illness or fatigue, she expressed gratitude for the ability to contribute, however modestly. This gratitude added softness to experiences that might otherwise feel heavy. Her presence within scientific spaces subtly changed them. Without confrontation or declaration, she expanded what was possible simply by remaining. Over time, her consistency normalized the idea that dedication and excellence have no single form, no single voice, no single identity. Change arrived quietly, carried by example. As the years progressed, Marie Curie became increasingly aware of her own limits. Rather than resisting them, she adjusted expectations, pacing herself carefully. This adaptation allowed her to continue engaging with ideas even as physical strength diminished. It is a powerful reminder that slowing down does not mean stopping. It often means sustaining what matters most. The institutions Marie helped shape carried forward her values long after she stepped back from daily involvement. These places inherited not just her discoveries, but her way of working, methodical, careful, collaborative. In this way, her influence spread gently, embedded in routines rather than proclamations. Marie Curie's life also illustrates how silence can be productive. Many of her most important insights emerged during long stretches of focused quiet. Silence allowed patterns to surface, relationships between ideas to become visible. This productive silence mirrors the quiet we seek at night, when thoughts begin to loosen and clarity softens into rest. Her story does not rush toward an ending, it simply continues, flowing from effort into rest, from curiosity into understanding, from activity into reflection. This continuity makes her life especially comforting to revisit when the mind is tired and seeking reassurance rather than stimulation. As you listen, there is no need to hold on to every sentence. Like Marie's work, the meaning can exist even if details fade. What remains is the feeling of steadiness, the sense that life can be lived thoughtfully, patiently, without constant urgency. Allow this feeling to spread gently. Let it slow the breath, soften the body, quiet the mind. There is nothing left to accomplish in this moment, just a calm presence, a quiet story, and the gradual movement toward sleep. Marie Curie's life, when remembered this way, becomes less about radiation and prizes and more about rhythm, attention, and care. These qualities do not demand alertness, they invite rest. Let the story continue to hum softly in the background, like a steady light that does not flicker, safe, constant, and calm. As Marie Curie's life settles into this quiet rhythm, it becomes easier to sense how deeply her patience shaped every part of her experience. She did not view time as something to overcome, but as something to move within. Years passed, experiments evolved, understanding grew slowly, and she allowed all of it to happen without resistance. This acceptance of time created a sense of inner spaciousness where pressure had little room to grow. Her ability to remain focused over long periods came from trust. Trust that careful work would accumulate meaning. Trust that repetition was not wasted effort. Trust that stillness could coexist with progress. In a world that often rewards speed, her life offers a softer lesson. That depth often emerges quietly when attention is sustained without force. Marie Curie's scientific curiosity never separated her from the human world. She remained attentive to suffering, to education, to the practical consequences of discovery. Her work in medical radiography during wartime was not an interruption of her scientific path, but an extension of it, a moment where knowledge met care. This alignment between intellect and compassion added balance to her life, preventing abstraction from becoming distance. Even when surrounded by complexity, Marie preferred simplicity in thought and action. She reduced problems to their essentials, worked step by step, and avoided unnecessary complication. This approach made difficult work feel manageable, replacing overwhelm with clarity. The same principle applies here. Listening to her story slowly, without excess, allows calm to replace mental noise. Her calm presence influenced those around her in subtle ways. Colleagues often adjusted their own pace when working with her, matching her steadiness, her focus, her quiet respect for the task at hand. In this way, her inner rhythm extended outward, shaping environments as much as ideas. Marie Curie's life also reveals how consistency can be a form of kindness. She showed up reliably, taught patiently, supported thoughtfully. These small, repeated acts built trust and stability within her communities. Kindness expressed through steadiness does not demand attention, yet it leaves a lasting impression. As her health continued to decline, Marie maintained dignity without pretense. She acknowledged fatigue honestly, rested when necessary, and accepted assistance without shame. This relationship with vulnerability was calm and practical, free from drama. It allowed her to remain connected to her work and relationships even as circumstances changed. Her legacy, viewed from a distance, appears vast, yet when lived, it unfolded through ordinary days, measured tasks, and quiet decisions. This contrast between the simplicity of daily life and the magnitude of long term impact can feel reassuring. It suggests that meaningful contributions do not require constant intensity, only sustained presence. Marie Curie's story encourages a gentle reevaluation of success. Success not as accumulation of recognition, but as alignment with purpose, not as constant motion, but as continuity. This perspective can soften internal pressure, making rest feel deserved rather than delayed. Listening to these reflections, the mind does not need to analyze or remember. Like her experiments, the value lies in process, not outcome. The process of listening, of allowing thoughts to flow without interruption, becomes its own quiet practice. Her life demonstrates that calm does not mean absence of challenge. It means meeting challenge without losing steadiness. This steadiness is what makes her story so suitable for rest, because it reassures rather than stimulates, grounds rather than excites. As the narrative continues, it can fade gently into the background, like a steady light that remains even when eyes close. There is no need for conclusion, only continuation, slow and unforced. Let the rhythm remain soft. Let sentences pass like breaths, one following another, without effort. The story does not ask for attention anymore. It simply exists, accompanying the transition from wakefulness into rest. Marie Curie's life, remembered this way, becomes a quiet companion, present, reliable, calm, a reminder that it is possible to live thoughtfully, patiently, and still leave a lasting imprint on the world. Allow that reminder to settle. Nothing more is required. As Marie Curie's life drifts further into this calm reflection, what remains most present is not the brilliance of discovery, but the quiet reliability of her way of being. She returned each day to her work with the same intention, not to achieve something extraordinary, but to understand something honestly. This intention gave her days a gentle coherence, reducing inner conflict and allowing effort to feel natural rather than forced. She understood that understanding cannot be hurried. Many of her experiments required waiting, observing materials over long periods, allowing changes to reveal themselves slowly. This waiting was not passive, it was attentive, respectful, and patient. In this patience, there was calm, the calm that comes from trusting that time is an ally rather than an obstacle. Marie Curie's life was shaped by this trust. When progress slowed, she did not abandon direction. She adjusted, refined, and continued. This steadiness created a deep sense of continuity, where setbacks did not disrupt identity or purpose. Her sense of self was not tied to immediate results, but to the act of sincere inquiry. Her quiet confidence allowed her to remain composed in environments that were not designed for her presence. Instead of pushing against resistance, she occupied space calmly, letting competence speak over time. This approach softened opposition without confrontation, gradually reshaping expectations through consistency rather than conflict. Marie's scientific discipline also taught her to accept ambiguity. Many questions remained unresolved for years. Instead of becoming anxious, she allowed uncertainty to exist alongside effort. This coexistence reduced mental strain, replacing urgency with curiosity. It is a gentle lesson that not knowing does not have to be uncomfortable. Her emotional life followed a similar pattern. Joy, grief, fatigue, and satisfaction were allowed to exist without overwhelming her direction. She did not attempt to eliminate discomfort, only to live honestly within it. This emotional balance added depth without turbulence, grounding her experience in realism rather than idealization. As she aged, Marie Curie's relationship with time softened further. There was less need to prove, less need to rush. Work continued, but at a pace shaped by care rather than ambition. This transition did not diminish meaning, it clarified it. What remained essential stayed, what was unnecessary fell away. The world around her continued to change. Science advanced, societies shifted, yet her core values remained steady. Integrity, patience, humility, and responsibility continued to guide her choices. This consistency created a sense of inner stillness, even as external circumstances evolved. Marie Curie's story, told in this slow, continuous way, becomes less about individual moments and more about atmosphere, an atmosphere of quiet dedication, thoughtful persistence, and respect for both knowledge and life. This atmosphere does not demand alertness, it invites rest. As you listen, there is no expectation to follow every idea. Like her experiments, the experience unfolds gently, without pressure. Thoughts can drift, attention can soften, and nothing important is lost. The meaning remains, even when focus fades. Her life offers reassurance that steadiness is enough, that showing up calmly, again and again, can shape the world in lasting ways, that a life lived with care does not need to be loud to be significant. Allow this reassurance to settle into the body. Let the breath slow naturally. Let muscles release their effort. The story has done its work simply by being present. Marie Curie's life continues to glow quietly in the background of history, not as a sharp light, but as a steady one, constant, reliable, and calm. A light that does not demand attention, only offers it. And as this light remains, there is nothing left to do. Just rest within the rhythm of a life that moved patiently, thoughtfully, and gently all the way through. As Marie Curie's life rests within this steady reflection, it becomes increasingly clear how deeply her calm was earned, not given. It grew from years of choosing patience over haste, clarity over noise, and sincerity over display. These choices, repeated quietly, shaped a life that moved forward without friction, even when circumstances were difficult. She understood that effort does not need to feel strained to be meaningful. Much of her work unfolded through routines that were simple and familiar, preparing materials, recording observations, reviewing results. These actions, repeated gently over time, created a sense of continuity that anchored her days. There was comfort in this predictability, a grounding presence that kept her focused without exhaustion. Marie Curie's way of thinking was deeply attentive. She noticed small changes, subtle patterns, slight inconsistencies. This sensitivity required calm. A restless mind would miss such details. Her ability to remain still, both physically and mentally, allowed insight to arise naturally. This stillness is part of what makes her story feel so suitable for moments of rest. Her relationship with recognition remained distant. Honors arrived, but they did not define her inner life. She accepted them politely, then returned to her work. This separation between external acknowledgement and internal purpose protected her from distraction, preserving energy for what truly mattered to her. It is a reminder that peace often comes from knowing what not to chase. Marie's humility was not practiced, it was natural. She understood that discovery is rarely owned by one person alone. Every insight builds upon previous work, shared knowledge, collective effort. This understanding dissolved the need for comparison, replacing it with gratitude. Gratitude, quietly held, became another source of calm. Even in moments of challenge, Marie did not dramatize difficulty. Financial uncertainty, institutional resistance, physical fatigue were approached practically. She adjusted plans, sought solutions, and continued. This grounded response prevented obstacles from becoming overwhelming, keeping her life oriented toward possibility rather than frustration. Her teaching reflected the same gentleness. She allowed students time to think, time to question, time to learn at their own pace. Silence was not rushed. Mistakes were treated as part of understanding. This learning environment felt safe, calm, and encouraging, a space where curiosity could exist without pressure. Marie Curie's scientific legacy is often described in terms of impact, but when viewed quietly, it is also a legacy of method, careful work, ethical consideration, openness, and patience. These qualities continue to shape scientific practice today, often invisibly woven into standards and routines that guide research without calling attention to themselves. Her later years unfolded slowly. Energy became something to manage gently rather than spend freely. She respected her body's signals, resting when needed, working when able. This balance allowed her to remain engaged with ideas without forcing effort beyond her limits. There is wisdom in this pacing, a reminder that sustainability matters. Marie's life did not rush toward an ending, it simply continued, adjusting naturally until rest became permanent. There was no dramatic conclusion, only a gradual quieting. This gentle transition mirrors the way we drift into sleep, not abruptly, but through layers of slowing awareness. As this story continues flowing, there is no expectation to follow it actively. Like a soft background presence, it can accompany you without demanding attention. Thoughts may wander, images may blur, and that is perfectly natural. The calm remains, even when focus fades. Her life invites us to trust slow processes, to trust that consistency matters more than speed, to trust that attention, given patiently, reveals what force cannot. These ideas settle gently, offering reassurance rather than instruction. Let the rhythm continue softly, each sentence easing into the next, each thought releasing into quiet. There is nothing left to resolve, nothing left to reach. Marie Curie's life, remembered this way, becomes a quiet landscape rather than a timeline, a place the mind can rest, move slowly, and eventually become still. As Marie Curie's life continues to rest within this gentle telling, what stands out most is how little resistance there was between who she was and what she did. Her work was not something separate from her life, it was simply part of it, woven naturally into her days. This lack of inner conflict created calm. When actions align with values, effort feels lighter, even when it is sustained over many years. She never needed to convince herself of the importance of her work. She trusted it quietly. That trust removed urgency. There was no need to rush toward outcomes or to compare progress with others. Each step mattered because it was honest, not because it was visible. This internal assurance gave her a steady center that remained unchanged by external shifts. Marie Curie's calm focus also shaped how she experienced success. Achievements were acknowledged, but they did not interrupt her rhythm. She did not pause her life to celebrate, nor did she alter her path. The work continued, gently, as it always had. This continuity made success feel like a natural extension of effort rather than a turning point. Her sense of discipline was not rigid. It was flexible, responsive, and humane. She allowed herself rest without guilt and effort without strain. This balance prevented burnout long before the term existed. It allowed her curiosity to remain alive, not exhausted by pressure. Marie's understanding of science was inseparable from her understanding of responsibility. As her discoveries gained influence, she became increasingly thoughtful about their use. This thoughtfulness slowed her in a good way. It added reflection to action, ensuring that progress did not outpace care. In this balance, there is a deep kind of peace. Her daily life remained modest, even as her reputation grew. Simple routines, familiar spaces, and quiet habits provided stability. These anchors allowed her mind to remain clear. Complexity was reserved for ideas, not for living. This simplicity is soothing to imagine, a life uncluttered by excess. Marie Curie's story also shows how gentleness and strength can coexist. Her resolve was firm, yet her manner was soft. She did not push against the world aggressively, she moved within it patiently. Over time, the world adjusted. This is a quiet form of strength, one that does not exhaust itself. As her body gradually weakened, her relationship with effort changed, but her relationship with meaning did not. She continued to engage with ideas at a pace that respected her limits. This adaptation was not resignation, but wisdom. It allowed her to remain connected without forcing what could no longer be sustained. Her life offers comfort because it does not demand perfection. It shows that dedication can include rest, that progress can include pauses, that meaning can exist without constant motion. These ideas settle gently, especially when the mind is tired. Listening to her story in this slow, continuous way allows tension to dissolve naturally. There is no climax to anticipate, no conclusion to reach. The narrative simply continues until attention no longer needs to hold it. Marie Curie's presence, when remembered this way, feels like a steady light in the distance. Not bright, not demanding, just there, reliable, calm, constant. As the words continue flowing, they can fade into silence whenever you are ready. The story does not need to finish. It can remain unfinished, open, like a soft breath that slowly deepens into rest. There is nothing left to learn in this moment, only something to feel. A sense of steadiness, a sense of patience, a sense of quiet trust. And within that trust, rest becomes easy. As Marie Curie's life continues to exist in this calm unfolding, it feels less like a story being told and more like a steady presence remaining nearby. There is nothing dramatic left to describe, only the quiet continuity of a life lived with intention. Her days did not need to be different from one another to be meaningful. Repetition itself became a source of stability, a gentle reassurance that consistency holds power. She trusted small steps, one measurement, one observation, one note written carefully by hand. These small acts accumulated slowly, almost invisibly, yet over time they formed something lasting. This way of working removed pressure from any single moment. Nothing had to be perfect. It only had to be honest. Marie Curie's calm did not come from certainty, but from acceptance. Acceptance that knowledge grows gradually. Acceptance that effort does not guarantee immediate results. Acceptance that some questions take longer than a lifetime to fully understand. This acceptance softened her relationship with ambition, allowing curiosity to remain gentle rather than demanding. Her inner world seemed anchored by purpose rather than emotion. Feelings moved through her life naturally, without taking control of direction. Joy did not distract her. Grief did not stop her. Fatigue did not defeat her. Everything had a place, none of it overwhelming the whole. The simplicity of her surroundings supported this balance. Familiar rooms, familiar tools, familiar routines. These elements created a sense of safety, allowing her mind to explore freely without needing to manage unnecessary complexity. There is something deeply restful in imagining such an environment, quiet, predictable, and focused. Marie Curie's legacy, when viewed from this gentle distance, feels less like a monument and more like a current, a slow, steady current that continues moving long after the source is no longer visible. Her influence flows quietly through science, medicine, and education, rarely noticed, yet always present. Her life suggests that calm attention can change the world, not all at once, not loudly, but gradually through patience and care. This idea settles easily into tired minds, offering relief from urgency and expectation. As this reflection continues, it no longer asks for understanding. It does not require memory. It only offers atmosphere, a calm atmosphere where thought can soften and awareness can drift. Marie Curie's story does not end. It simply becomes quieter, blending into the background of time, like a light that remains on even after everyone has gone to sleep. Steady, unmoving, reassuring. You do not need to stay awake for it. The story will remain whether you listen or not. Its presence is constant, gentle, and patient, just like the life it reflects. Let the words thin out. Let spaces grow between thoughts. Let silence take over when it wants to. Nothing important will be lost. Rest is already close. As Marie Curie's life remains present in this slow telling, it begins to feel almost timeless. The details no longer stand apart. They blend together into a single, steady impression, a life shaped by patience, sincerity, and care. Her choices, repeated over years, formed a pattern that did not need excitement to feel meaningful. The pattern itself was enough. She lived with a quiet confidence that did not depend on reassurance. Her sense of direction came from within, not from approval or recognition. This inner steadiness allowed her to move through uncertainty without fear. When answers were delayed, she did not feel lost. She trusted the path, even when it curved slowly out of sight. Marie Curie's attention was her greatest strength, attention given fully, without rush, without distraction. This kind of attention changes how time is experienced. Minutes stretch, hours soften. Work becomes immersion rather than effort. In this state, calm arises naturally, not as something pursued, but as something that simply happens. Her life shows that calm does not require isolation. She worked with others, taught, collaborated, and supported communities. Yet she preserved her inner quiet by remaining selective with energy. She did not scatter herself. She chose depth. This choice protected her focus and sustained her curiosity across decades. Even her silence carried meaning. She did not speak unnecessarily. When she did speak, it was measured, thoughtful, and grounded. Silence was not emptiness for her. It was space. Space where ideas could settle, where understanding could mature. This respectful relationship with silence makes her story especially soothing now. Marie Curie's way of living gently resisted excess, excess emotion, excess ambition, excess noise. What remained was clarity. Clarity simplifies. It allows the mind to rest. It removes the need to constantly evaluate or react. In this simplicity, there is ease. Her life reminds us that persistence does not need to feel heavy. It can feel like a quiet return, again and again, to what matters. Each return reinforces stability. Each repetition deepens familiarity. Over time, effort blends into routine, and routine becomes comfort. As the story continues flowing, it becomes less linear. Past, present, and future lose their sharp edges. What remains is a feeling of steadiness, of quiet trust, of patience that does not demand reward. You may notice your thoughts drifting more freely now. This is natural. The story is no longer something to follow closely. It is something to rest beside, like a calm presence in the room that does not require conversation. Marie Curie's life, in this softened form, offers reassurance without instruction. It does not tell you what to do. It simply shows that calm dedication is possible. That meaning can unfold slowly, that a life does not need urgency to be full. Let the rhythm slow even more. Let sentences fade before they finish. Let pauses grow longer. There is no need to hold on to the narrative anymore. The story can continue on its own. Rest can arrive quietly. As Marie Curie's life remains with us in this softened form, it no longer feels necessary to describe actions or achievements. What stays is the atmosphere she created through the way she lived, an atmosphere of patience, restraint, and quiet devotion. This atmosphere does not fade with time. It lingers, steady and calm, like a room that holds warmth long after a light has been turned off. Her way of moving through the world suggests that effort does not need to feel tense. When intention is clear, action follows naturally. There is no struggle between wanting and doing. This harmony is deeply restful to consider. It reminds the mind that peace often comes from alignment, not from accomplishment. Marie Curie trusted continuity. She trusted that returning to the same questions, the same work, the same values would slowly reveal meaning. This trust removed the pressure to seek constant novelty. There was comfort in familiarity, comfort in knowing where to begin each day, comfort in steady progress that did not demand recognition. Her life also shows that silence can be generous. Silence allows space for thought, for recovery, for understanding to deepen. Marie did not fear silence. She worked within it, lived within it, let it support her rather than fill it unnecessarily. This acceptance of silence is what makes her story feel so compatible with rest. As this reflection continues, it becomes clear that there is nothing left to resolve. Her life does not present unanswered questions that need urgency. It offers a sense of completion that does not depend on finality, a completion that exists simply because the life was lived with care. Her presence, remembered this way, feels steady and unintrusive. It does not ask for attention. It does not compete with thought. It simply remains, calm and reliable, like a gentle reminder that patience is enough. At this point, the words no longer need to carry meaning actively. They can fade into sound, into rhythm, into silence. The mind can let go without missing anything important. Marie Curie's life has already offered what it needed to offer: calm, steadiness, trust in slow processes, permission to rest. There is nothing else to add in this moment, only space. Let the space expand. Let the story rest. As Marie Curie's life reaches this final stillness, there is a sense that nothing more needs to be added. Her journey has already unfolded fully, not through dramatic endings, but through a gradual softening, like evening light fading without announcement. What remains is not absence, but calm presence. Her life shows that meaning does not require noise to endure. Long after the instruments were put away, long after the laboratory fell silent, the values she lived by continued quietly: patience, honesty, care, and respect for the unknown. These values do not age, they do not disappear, they remain steady and reassuring. Marie Curie's story does not conclude with a single moment. It dissolves gently into continuity, into institutions that carried forward her spirit, into students who learned her methods, into medical practices that eased suffering, into a way of approaching life that values depth over speed. As you rest with this story now, it no longer asks to be remembered in detail. It only asks to be felt: a calm rhythm, a steady breath, a quiet trust that life, when lived attentively, unfolds exactly as it needs to. There is no pressure to stay awake, no expectation to reflect further. The story has done its work simply by being present. Like Marie Curie herself, it does not demand attention. It remains quietly available. Let your thoughts drift without direction. Let the body soften. Let the mind release its grip on effort. Nothing important will be missed. Nothing needs to be completed. This is where the story rests, not with an ending, but with stillness, a stillness that holds warmth rather than emptiness, a stillness that feels safe. Marie Curie's life, remembered in this gentle way, becomes a quiet companion for the night, steady, patient, calm, and within that calm, sleep can arrive naturally.